many reasons. First, there's basic knowledge. Yeah? One of the most important things we need to learn and understand. Yeah? For astrology is the elements. Yeah? And of course, the understanding of the elements help us to understand ourselves, yeah? To understand others around the other signs, yeah? Why they behave in such and such a way, what's important for them, yeah? And we need to, there's always a revelation, yeah? And of course, then there is the interaction inside us with the elements, inside, and the interaction in our relationships, in relating ourselves with people, yeah? Because we know we tend to look, they say there's always one element for us that is the most important, with which we identify ourselves the most, yeah? And normally the opposite element is remains unconscious or is suppressed, yeah? And then we tend to connect with people that who have that element. It's like the unconscious looks to express, as if we needed to integrate that dynamic and develop that element. So element that's deficient or we tend to miss in our chart. Let's say that the point is that we always have the four elements, but one is some are more active and some are, let's say, hidden in a way, not expressed, but that makes trouble for us. And so, there are also situations, let's say we project the element that remains unconscious. For example, airy signs will either relate with people or situations where emotions become very intense, or get involved in situations where things become very emotional, because there's a sort of missing of that element. So it's so we need to recognize. That's why we need to recognize was the main element, and was the hidden element. What elements are secondary for us, or support the main element. Then in our dreams, that's very important, because in our dreams there always there's always a dynamics of the elements. I think one of the most important, if we could things or aspects in a dream, is the element and the elements that are expressing through the dreams. You see, if we translate a dream in terms of energy, we always see that the most unconscious element provides the fuel for that dream, for the most important dreams we have.
So are you going to talk about this dream as well in the...
Yeah, of course. If you talk about elements and the dynamics of elements, we have to explore dreams, because it's where the unconscious is always trying to reach our consciousness, and it's always using the element that we do don't know how to use it, or we cannot recognize, or even reject. For example,
Wow.
let's say some airy signs could reject emotion. I don't like to be so emotional. I don't like to be sentimental. Let's be logical and practical.
Totally
So,
agree.
And for example, my student Laura, who's become an important astrologer, she goes as far as saying that if we don't recognize and work the element properly throughout our life, that can not provoke but be present, the type of death we could have could be associated with the element. Let's say someone who has no water or rejects the water could be drowned.
Interesting.
Die by drowning, or an earth who rejects or doesn't know how to cope with fire could die by fire. So of course, those are very extreme situations, but it's true, because she studied different cases of famous people.
Oh wow!
So she found out that. So we need, because the theory of Jung's theory is actually based on the 4 elements. So he doesn't mention the name, he doesn't use the name of the element, but he associates it to functions, psychological functions, thinking, intuition, sensation, emotion, and he says that the psyche, meaning the unconscious, a balanced, healthy person needs to be supported by the 4 elements. Otherwise, he makes this simple example of a table. If one element is deficient, it's like or one function is deficient, like table that's missing one leg. I mean, 3 legs, and so the 4th leg gives us a kind of stability. And, I mean, the first 2 hours will be okay. What are the elements in the tradition? What they mean? What was the energy? The elements, because they have 4 elements, but in a different mode. Let's say fire. Fire could be cardinal fire intuition that I directed. That's Aries. Concentrated intuition, that's Leo. And let's say mutable, which is the Sagittarius. Yes and no, dispersion. So that's the cycle, actually. The key to understand. You know that whenever we start a new cycle or basic class of astrology, I always speak of the cycle of the element. And so that would be, and then associating it to, or the elements to the psychological functions. Use more and more examples, because I think that I'm convinced that I'm more and more convinced that we need to recognize the element. We need to see the element in a very clear way in ourselves and in other people. for the second day, let's say, approach the elements through relationships and projections. How we because we could have either fear about the element that we don't recognize, or even dislike about that element. I don't like that element, and so we connect with that element in our relationships, any kind of relationships, not only love relationships, and or we get involved in situations that are associated to that element. I think it's when we talk about synastry, interaction, relationships, the most important thing actually is to understand the dynamics of the element. Because, okay, you could say I'm with someone who has a moon in Virgo, and Virgo is such and such, but the key point is not defining the Virgo, is defining the element. Because if you live with someone, or spend a lot of time or get involved intimately with someone with the moon in Earth or the moon in Virgo in this case, what you are really experiencing is the element, Earth. And for someone who's fire or has a moon in fire, being with someone with moon in Earth could feel suffocated, like you turn off my fire, because of the fire needs adventure, discoveries, new things, but the moon in Earth needs a program and a situation, routines. It can also provoke dependency. It can become, since I cannot express that element, so I become dependent on some or someone who handles that element.
Very, very, very interesting. Okay, so relationship and projection, and any other theme you would like to add on the second day?
And we can review a little bit the theme of the patterns with Saturn, because Saturn, of course, organizes, as we explore with the patterns on Saturn, but actually, and we didn't develop that, Saturn, the way Saturn organizes a pattern is according to the logic of the element. Let's say Saturn in fire, the patterns that Saturn will organize will be according to moral values, identity, intuitions.